My name is Johnny Wu. How I'm affiliated with the Rapture is because I'm the writer, co-writer, executive producer, and also the director and editor of the film.
Jim Geyer. I'm a producer and co-writer of the film, and I also am helping a bit with some additional CG work.
My name is James Orris, and I'm affiliated with the Rapture. I was working behind the scenes as the cast manager / operator / wire team, and now assistant editor.
My name is Arya Kumar, and I'm a composer for the feature film Rapture, The Rapture. So I'm going to be writing the music, the original score for it, and also putting together some of the, or doing some of the music supervisor stuff as well, trying to get some songs placed in the movie.
It came probably about 10 years ago when I had a dream about how the end of the world coming about, and so decided to write out a story called The Rapture. But basically speaking, it's a more biblical sense. I did lots of research for it, and eventually that never materialized because we have a problem with my partnership before 2005. When we had the premiere of the Joker's card, we thought we wanted to do something else better, much more interesting, that can get into the comic book sense and anime style. So I approached Mr. Jim Geyer and asked whether he would like to help me out. And he said, sure, no problem.
I'm a friend of Johnny's, and first became involved with his filmmaking during his short film, A Joker's Card. I saw some early cuts of that, trailer or just preliminary footage, and asked Johnny if he needed any money to help finish it, because it wasn't done yet. And he responded, as any good independent director does, with, money is always good. So I became a producer on that, and Johnny and I share a love of comic books, science fiction, fantasy sort of stuff.
What we decided to do also is, instead of going toward a biblical perspective, we decided to go to a sci-fi realm into it, because it's much more interesting, much more easy to be adapted for different kind of genre and different kind of generations. So there'll be chances for easier for distributor to be interested in the movie. After we can see a very close family knitness within Chinese culture, such as how Midal and Dr. Gutierrez interact with each other. We also see how the rebellious section, which is much more influenced by the Western culture, when Jonathan, Midal, and Job are interacting against each other. Then you have the powerness of control with Eve, who wants to become the ruler, quote unquote, again, in imperialism style of culture that's there. So there's a lot in there, but it doesn't mean that it has to be there. It just happens to be there because of the way we wrote the script.
Oh yeah, well, the writing of the film drew upon, well, I mean, my general geekiness. I mean, my whatever general science knowledge about all the stuff with the DNA, the organic metal.
The organic metal augments the ATP generation pathways at the cellular level, resulting in the ability...
Well, I knew Johnny from A Joker's Card, and I've worked with him on that, doing the same sorts of things, writing the score for it, and it turned out to be a great success. So we decided to continue the collaboration and work on The Rapture together.
I'm interested in films, so I did a search in Cleveland for films in Cleveland, actually, and I got Johnny's web address, and then I ended up sending him an email, and I ended up coming out here and I met him, and he wanted me to audition, and I think that was when he was casting A Joker's Card, so he saw how insane I was, so he put me in the wheelchair, and I was the insane patient.
You give him 500 milligrams of sodium pentothal and put him to bed with him in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
How did you first become involved in independent films?
1998, when I met a friend, Greg Petoskey, and he was a great photographer, and we decided let's start open a business called MDI, Media Design Imaging. And from then on, we decided to do our first movie, Twisted, shot and film, and we have Sean Ferris, which you have seen probably in lots of different features from Hollywood, like Sleepover, etc., etc. He was one of the stars, and from then on, we just started to do a lot more video production and got more into film, and did a couple more short films from there.
I've been writing music before, but as far as locally in Cleveland, Joker's Card was my first opportunity. So I was really grateful to Johnny, just because I didn't know anyone here in the film community, the indie club, message boards, and he saw that I was from Cleveland, and then he's like, hey, why don't you send a message to the Cleveland Yahoo Indie Club, email list, and did that, and then that's how I got to know a bunch of people in Cleveland, so that was really cool.
For the entertainment industry is based on networking and friends that you can know, people you know. Based on that perspective, I have known all this cast and crew within the project The Rapture are friends and people that I have get together, get to know them in the past. A few of them are people I never worked with before, but because of I met them through indie club, through filmmaking groups, and they have expressed the eagerness to participate, so we decided to work together.
There certainly are no prima donnas in an independent film, at least from what I've seen. I don't have tons of experience, but you just can't afford to be, because the money isn't there. They're not going to hire people who can't work with a team. They can't say, well, this person's a star, so we have to have them, and they're going to get us lots of money, so we'll put up with his or her crap. So what I was amazed by on The Rapture was the degree to which, I mean, there's certainly friction, but the degree to which people were together, people worked not at cross purposes, they worked across lines. It had crew helping, cast helping with crew stuff, crew helping with tasks that weren't technically theirs, that were someone else's, but they filled in. You had multiple people doing multiple things all the time, and I thought that was really cool.
If the budget is there, I can certainly, hire an orchestra to perform everything. Of course, there's always, hiring the musicians, the instruments, the recording hall, and then all the sound people. That's a huge expense, especially when you're talking about, a 40 to 60 piece orchestra. So what I've done is I've created an electronic sort of simulation of that. And it allows me to have realistic instrument samples, but every time you hear the music, it sounds very realistic.
Now edit the whole process of editing, which is another headache, because now you had to translate whatever is written down the script and whatever was shot into whatever is viewable.
That would be hell on earth. If you've ever seen some of the footage that we get that we have to cut together, it's quite horrid. I mean, it's good once you're done, but when you get a whole bunch of footage and so many hours of it, like scene 8, that's the longest scene in the entire movie, you have like 20 different shots and some good audio and some bad audio with car horns and jackhammers and all that other street noise.
Adding all the component like composer, music, score, effects, sound, CG work.
Tracks and scores, and in fact my CD library is full of soundtracks and scores. So it was very natural to just jump right into that, without having to have written for a concert or something else entirely. I was in a couple of bands and did write some band music for a while and things like that, starting from high school through college and things like that. But ultimately it was the film score stuff that really caught my attention, because it's very background, but it's very influential to what you're watching. And people don't realize it's there, but once you take it away, you realize what kind of power it can have on the scene.
Cleveland, but there's a lot of disappointment from actors who meet different kind of filmmakers who actually cannot deliver the goods. Which also at the same time, there's a lot of good talented filmmakers, and also unfortunately not meeting the right talent to be able to pull off what they can do. It's the same thing wherever you go. If you go to LA, you go to New York City, you're going to find the same problem.
Films kind of don't have this mainstream push. And a lot of Hollywood pictures, for example, they kind of want, as far as music goes, they just want sort of a formulaic music production. And that leaves very little to creativity. Whereas an independent film, you have a little more leeway with that.
Films.
Budget. That's the bottom line. If you have lots of money, you can become a major film production. If you don't have that much money, and then you have to do your best to become independent, then you had to cut corners, you had to do everything you possible within the budget you have, or within the limited amount of money you have, still make it work. And obviously, the more money you have, the more easier certain aspect of filmmaking will become. Not necessarily better, but it might make your life much easier to make it through.
Stream stuff is very formulaic, and that can get to you sometimes. I've heard some mainstream composers say, I just need to have my outlet, my creative outlet, and so they go into a concert hall and they just have a concert work, or some other people do independent films, or some other people write for themselves, or whatever it is. So I think you definitely need an outlet for mainstream stuff.
The thing about indie films is you can get away and do that. You can do all kinds of stuff. It happens, I guess, in the Hollywood films or the studio films, but you mainly get the impression that when that's happening, it's just to keep someone happy. The director wants to do this little quirky film, so the studio lets him do it, so he stays happy and stays with it. Not going to make lots of money in production, and they'll do it. They'll pay for it just to keep him happy, just to keep him with that studio and so forth. With indie film, the film is driving it. The people are doing what they want to do.